Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am here today with Ellyn Hilliard McLeod, and she is an integrative health coach, educator, and holistic nutritionist with decades of experience helping individuals uncover the nutritional, emotional, and spiritual roots of illness. She began her health journey with a Crohn's disease diagnosis that inspired her to find a holistic and spiritual solution rather than a pharmaceutical remedy. Thank you so much for joining me, Ellyn.
Thank you, Amanda. It's so great to be here.
I enjoyed meeting you as well. So I'd love to know who Ellyn is at the core when you strip everything else away.
Gosh, if we really do that, Amanda, then you and I know we are one. You are me and I am you, and that we are love. I mean, really, other than that being our spiritual journey, and I think my purpose in life is to pull love from source and spread it around to as many people as I can. And those are the clients that I attract, are people who are looking to remove those barriers to love's presence and find that they are already healed. So I certainly went on that journey myself, and I know that that is definitely true for me. So I hope to inspire others to do the same.
That's beautiful. Would you say that you've always embodied that?
No, I don't think so. I grew up in a fairly, nuclear family, typical American family. I grew up at the time when all of the food delivery services came to your door, right? The Wonder Bread man, the donuts, the ice cream man, the milk man, and everything. All of these standard American foods were all delivered to your door. And, we all bought into the whole commercialism of the planet, I think. And I was definitely part of that. I think that my big awakening, I had a kind of a spiritual experience when I was 12. I went to a summer camp, a Christian summer camp. And I felt this unbelievable power of love during a choir experience where we were all singing songs. And from that moment on, I wanted to know what that was. It felt so amazing and so real to me that I spent the rest of my life looking for what that was. And then happened upon the journey of healing because I had a lot of loss in my life, a lot of people who passed over the threshold. And so I had a lot of questions about whether this was the reality or whether they were heading off to the reality.
I'd love if you could take me down memory lane a little bit. Tell me about childhood, upbringing, however deep you want to take that.
I had a pretty connected family. I mean, they were definitely about togetherness, I would say. But my family all ended up being diagnosed with cancer. Even before that happened, 6 years before that journey began, I began to experience my own challenges with health. And when I was 28 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And I had all kinds of intestinal and digestive issues that I couldn't quite, pin anything on. I certainly didn't realize it was diet. I thought I had this really healthy diet because I was buying organic salsa and organic tortillas and organic cheese and, everything that just had an organic label on it. But the gastroenterologist told me that the only way to resolve this was through pharmaceuticals and then eventually surgery, and they'd have to remove parts of my colon. And I thought, whoa, at 28, I don't think I'm going to go down that road. And I happened to very luckily run into a nutritionist at a bookstore. I went immediately to go see if I could find a book on the issue. And this woman was putting her business cards up on the bulletin board there. And it said nutrition. she was a nutritionist and she specialized in digestive health. And I went, whoa, I think I'm supposed to meet you. So she ended up being a very powerful teacher in my life. And not only did she help clean my colon, and we did a whole series of colon hydrotherapy together. If your clients don't know what that is, it's flushing your colon with a machine that helps to remove all of the debris that has been accumulating there for years. But she taught me how to eat, and she came over to my house and she opened my refrigerator and she said, "Oh, honey, you got to change your diet. You're eating processed foods." I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean I'm eating processed foods? Everything in here is organic." She says, "Babe, just because it's organic doesn't mean it's fresh." And she really taught me that things in cans and bottles and jars were a real problem, and that I was probably having a reaction because my food wasn't as close to the way Mother Nature intended it to be. So she helped me change my diet. She got me introduced to farmers markets and community supported agriculture and co-ops, and she re-educated my food preparation to make things as close to vegetable based and as close to raw as you could get, with just a smattering of cooked foods and a smattering of animal proteins. So I ended up just changing my whole health profile, and the doctor saw me a year later and said, "What have you done? You seen another doctor?" And I said, "No, I'm seeing a nutritionist." He's going, "Well, I've never seen anything like it. I guess it's spontaneous remission." So he just chalked it up to, it just was a fluke, just a fluke. Couldn't be that you changed your food, Yeah. So anyway, 6 years later, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer and ended up losing his life 3 years later because he did so much chemotherapy and finally a clinical trial, and died of a stroke. And then my brother followed, and my sister and mother also got breast cancer. But yeah, lost my dad and my brother.
Oh,
chemotherapy. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Well, it was actually a real inspiration for me. It made me realize that there were other options available, and that the path I'd gone down 6 years earlier really was probably the solution. But the family was very set in the way they ate and the way they listened to the experts, right? So the experts can't be wrong. They're so nice, as my brother used to say. They're so nice at the hospital. They never lead me down a path that wasn't successful. Their smiles on their faces, and they take good care of me. And yeah, that was one of the experiences that taught me that there had to be another option. But even with nutrition, I ended up discovering that there are other paths that are more healing. And we can talk about those, about mindset and changing your attitude and kind of looking at the depth of your spiritual life and how love can transform your health.
That's true. Now, I'm curious, did you have any other serious illnesses prior to this at 28?
Just typical childhood illnesses. Back in the 60s and 70s, everybody got chicken pox and measles and all of those things. And it was all just expected. You didn't have vaccines for all of those. So I wasn't vaccinated very heavily. Back then, you were really only given smallpox vaccines. I don't even know if there was anything else other than that. Now it's 81 different vaccines, although Robert Kennedy Jr. has stopped that, and he's no longer recommending that series of 81 vaccines. But back then, vaccinations were considered a modern miracle. But I was lucky. I wasn't vaccinated in an extensive way. And so my health wasn't that, I had good genetics, I guess you would say. But it was really the deterioration of the gut and the constant bombardment of refined foods, I think, that put me in the situation that I was in.
Now, I'm curious, and I don't know if you remember, but approximately how long after you were with the doctor did you go looking for a book and you met the woman putting the business cards down there?
The same day. I went right from that doctor's office over to the bookstore to find out there's got to be a way to do this without drugs and surgery. So I found the same day. I think she got me in within 2 weeks to see her. I drove quite a distance to go see her. She ended up being 40 minutes away. but I figured this was divine intervention. So I listened to the call and I made the trip once a week to go over and see her for, 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. That when you start to tune in to the vibration around you that is really the positive vibration instead of the ego, things like that will happen and you can start paying attention. You can listen to the tiny tap on the door, but cancer is one of those things that by the time it gets there, that's a loud pounding on the door. So yeah, luckily it was just a Crohn's disease diagnosis and it wasn't a colon cancer diagnosis. So it was reversible. Within the year, I was completely healed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Completely healed.
Yeah. Never had a problem since. But I eat completely differently. I am very religious about my food. So I shop at the farmer's market to get my food. I get all of my water from the water store and get structured water with minerals. I rarely eat processed food outside the house. I process my own food. Like I just made some chili, right? So that's processed food. I cooked it. I put all the stuff in it, the beans and the corn and the zucchini from my garden and the tomatoes from my garden and the jalapenos from my garden. So it's not as, right off out of the garden, but it's all homemade. So I try to eat as close to that as I can.
If you're loving these conversations and want to dive even deeper into mindfulness and transformation, make sure you check out my other podcast, Breathwork Magic. It's all about the power of the breath to unlock your potential. I'd love to have you there. Now, I'm curious. You made a comment about something with the bottles, the cans of food that she had said that.
Yeah, so she said, you got your food's in bottles, cans, and jars. Yeah, so she saw it. Everything was in plastic, right, or glass. So yeah, and I guess the way I look at it, when I did my original studies to get my certification in nutrition and my PhD in holistic nutrition, one of the things my mentor and teacher taught me, and he's an incredible person, Ann Bauman, he owns the college in Katati that I went to called Bauman College. And he really woke me up to the way that man originally ate. And he directed me towards Weston Price, who was a dentist. And he talked about how this man saw in his patients the deterioration of their teeth and how it was directly reflecting the deterioration of their health. And so he visited 11 different countries that hadn't been touched by Western foods. And he found out that though they all ate very differently, the Eskimos were eating whale blubber, the Tahitians were fishing and eating taro plants, and the people from Switzerland were making cheese from goats. They all had one thing in common, and that was that they did not eat processed flours or sugars. That was it, every one of them. And none of those civilizations had cancer, diabetes, or heart disease. So that was a big wake-up call for me. And they have a cookbook out. It's called Nourishing Traditions and gives you all these wonderful ways to prepare your whole foods. And whole food is just as close to the way Mother Nature intended as possible, if you can, right off of the vines in your yard. That's in the case of my tomatoes.
That's fascinating, but it makes a lot of sense, about how other countries do stuff differently, like I've had friends I've never been to Italy myself, but I've had friends who've gone to Italy and they're eating even all these carbs, the pasta, and they don't gain any weight. And they come back to, because it's different. It's,
I was in 2019. I went to Tuscany, to an amazing place. It's called Organic Tuscany. You can find it online. And they're an organic cooking kitchen. And they teach you, then you stay for a week in this villa, Tuscany. And they teach you how to make all this pure food from foods that have not been adulterated with chemicals or processing or any preservatives or anything. And their wines are the same way. They don't put preservatives and sulfites in their wines there. So yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Now, Ellyn, I'd love to transition back a tad. I know you got your degree in nutrition. I'm curious how schooling was for you and when you decided you were going to pursue that.
I found Waldorf education through an equally interesting synchronistic series of events. It was actually due to a friend who was dying of cancer, and I went down this path with her looking at this form of education. And so I'd been in the system teaching Waldorf education, which is a holistic type of education. It was developed by Rudolf Steiner, a philosopher from Germany in the 1920s. So I had been teaching, but when my dad got cancer, I felt a very strong pull to look more into this. And the nutritionist he was working with at the end was incredibly inspiring. And she was working with a series of nutritionists from Boulder, Colorado, which is why I ended up moving out to Boulder, Colorado. And I ended up getting my certification with Bauman, and I'm printing off my business cards. I go to a printer and I have this logo design, and on the card, it says on there, nutritionist specializes in cancer nutrition. It says right on the card. So I go to pick up my cards, and the young man at the counter says, "Oh, you're Ellyn. My boss would like to talk to you." What is this about? So he ushers me into this back office, and here's this elderly man. And he says, "Oh, ma'am, please sit down." He says, I saw your card, and I wanted you to know that I have colon cancer. And I'm really interested in what you have to say because I've been going through chemotherapy and it doesn't seem to be doing much for me. And so I wondered, could you tell me a little more about what would a holistic nutritional option be? And so I gave him a whole menu plan, and I told him all about organics and whole foods and farmers markets and things. And then he said, "You know what? I'd like to invite you to my support group." So it'd been several weeks. I hadn't heard from him. He had my card. I knew he had my number. And then about 3 weeks later, I get a phone call from him, and he's inviting me to come and teach at his support group at Kaiser Permanente, a medical facility in the Sacramento area in California. So I show up with my little bag of tricks. I've got a little slideshow. So I come in there. I've got all my little books. I've got some examples of good foods and everything. And there's 90 people in there. 90 people in that support group. So I end up doing this 12-week course with these people at Kaiser Permanente. It was an American Cancer Society group, but none of the registered dietitians from the hospital wanted to do it because it would be after hours and they had to volunteer for free. They didn't get paid. So I thought, I'm just starting out. I'm happy to do this for free. And I ended up building my entire practice from those 90 people. I mean, not all 90 people ended up coming to me, but the big group of people that did ended up referring me. And yeah, and so that's how I ended up doing these holistic support groups.
I love that ripple effect. That's amazing. And you did that for 12 weeks.
Yeah, it was 12 weeks long. It was only one night a week, but it was 12 sessions and 2 hours with these people. And you can't believe the questions people have. What I love about cancer patients, they're not like weight loss patients. Weight loss clients come to you and they say, "Honey, I just want to fit in that dress this week, and I'm going to a wedding and I want to fit in this dress." But cancer patients, they come and they say, "God, I have so much to do, and I was just given 3 months to live, and I have so much to do. I not only do I want to lengthen this time that I'm here on the planet, but I want to feel better. I feel terrible, and I want to feel better. So can you help me?" So it's a completely different mindset. You've got the weight loss is just the quick fix, babe. Give me the quick fix because I got to fit in this gown. But when people come to you with cancer, they're facing transition, and they know that boy, did I do everything on the planet here I was supposed to do? I think I got some other things I want to do. Can you help me do that? So it's a fabulous group of people. They are awake.
Now, have you worked?
What's that?
Have you worked with weight loss clients?
Oh yeah, in the very initial beginning of my practice, I worked with weight loss clients. I got out there and walk the track with them. I would call them up at home and say, "Okay, what'd you eat today?" And yeah, as soon as the fancy event is over, they want nothing to do with you. So they're better in a program, I think, like, Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or Noom or something, where they've got accountability with a large group of people that make it your responsibility. I'm not saying that cancer isn't your responsibility. As someone who got themselves in a situation in which they're being faced with a life-threatening illness, you do have to take responsibility for yourself. And that is what the call is. It's wake up, baby, because you got a journey here, and only you can solve it. Only you can solve this mystery. So, yeah, it's just a different kind of mystery than weight loss.
Yeah.
Because now everybody's taking GLP, right? Now people are just taking the quick fix weight loss drug. If that's all you're trying to achieve, GLP is probably your solution.
Now, you didn't have weight loss clients that were looking for a lifestyle change at all?
If they're coming to you because they want to look good in a bathing suit in June, that's a little different than when your husband says he's leaving you because you're 45 pounds overweight. You have a much more important mission if you're trying to keep your family together. And if you think that's really the issue, that usually isn't the issue. The husband isn't leaving just because of the weight. The husband's usually leaving because there's other things that are wrong with the marriage. And so what I find with most of my clients is that when they walk into your office, no matter whether it's weight loss or cancer, they walk in thinking that they want a menu plan, and they walk out realizing that they got to change their attitude.
Really?
So mindset is a big thing. Yeah, we work with something called attitudinal healing. And it's a 12 principle healing practice that helps you understand who you really are and what you really are and how you project yourself out to the world. It comes from a book written by Jerry Jampolsky, and Love is Letting Go of Fear is his book. And it guides you through the journey of taking a look at who you are inside this shell, inside this costume that you wear, and that this is just a temporary costume, but you're more than that. And you're here for eternity, and your body's here for 80 or 90 years, maybe. So if you really want to find out who you are and who you are eternally, then you got to find out that you're love. That's who you really are. And a lot of people have obstacles in that path. There's a lot of abuse, or misunderstanding, or, breakups, and, a lot of situations have put people in a very defensive mode and an attack mode. And so you have to help them remove those obstacles so they no longer feel they have to project on others or other things, and take complete responsibility for loving themselves first.
Wow. Now, how did you discover attitudinal healing?
Well, basically because when you start working with cancer patients, you lose a lot of your clients. They transition, right? I mean, a lot of people who come to you are stage 4 patients. They've tried chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, and you're a last-ditch effort. So when they get to your office, they do have a timeline. Their doctor's already told them there's nothing more we can do for you. So you're working with people nutritionally so they can feel better and to help extend their life. But you're also working with them because they realize that they have a lot left that they want to do. They have a bucket list that's a lot longer than their timeline. And so when you're working with people like that, you start to see that the really miraculous healings are the people that forgive. And when you have an intestinal carcinoma patient who tells you that her life is just fine, there's nothing wrong with my life, I even think I eat pretty well. And, another tumor is growing, I've got to have another surgery. And then you find out that she is estranged from her gay son because her religious beliefs told her that you cannot tolerate homosexuality. And so she's miserable. She's in pain. She's emotionally distraught and terrified that she's going to die alone and she's not going to be with her son. And so you help her repair that relationship. And so with this one particular woman, I write about her in my book, It Takes More Than Carrot Juice. Her husband and I convinced her to invite the son over for Easter with his partner. And it was a miraculous transformation. And she cried and told him how much she missed him and loved him and apologized and asked for forgiveness. And she completely forgave him. She left her church. She went to find a much more tolerant spiritual community, and she completely healed. The tumors went away, and she lived a very long and healthy life after that.
Oh my God.
So when you see that kind of thing, you have to ask yourself, wait a second, what am I missing? It might take more than carrot juice. And that's where the title of my book came from. It takes more than carrot juice.
Oh my God, Ellyn. It cured her tumors.
It healed her tumors.
Wow.
Yeah, there's lots of stories like that. I have 20 stories in my book. Half of them don't survive physically, but they have major transformational, attitudinal mindset changes. But half of them have miraculous healings, both physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I feel that even those that didn't survive physically because they already were so poisoned by some of the things they'd done in their life, their cigarettes, their alcohol, their chemo, their, prescription medication, they learned a lot about who they really were. They forgave themselves for a lot of guilt they felt. They forgave family members or, workers that were in their business that they hadn't resolved conflict issues with, and learned a lot so that by the time they did pass, they were ready to go. They realized who they really were.
Wow. I had never heard of attitudinal healing before you mentioned it or wrote it on the forum, but it makes so much sense.
Here's the 12 principles. The essence of who you are is love. That's number 1. You have to recognize that. 2, health is inner peace. So healing is letting go of fear so you can become peaceful with your life. 3 is giving and receiving are the same. You end up becoming a generous person and not always expecting something back. 4 is we can let go of the past and of the future and live in the moment right now. You can't ever worry about the past. It's over. And you can't worry about the future. Studies have shown that almost 90% of all the things people worry about in the future never happen. Number 5 is now is the only time there is, and each moment is for living. So start living and stop wasting your life on things that are trivial. Number 6 is we learn how to love ourselves and others by forgiving instead of judging. And 7 is we become love finders rather than fault finders. We stop criticizing. We stop judging. We stop looking around and comparing ourselves to other people. Number 8 is we choose and direct ourselves to be peaceful regardless of what's happening outside. So let's say you lose some money in the stock market. You just learn not to react. Number 9 is we are students and teachers to each other. If you teach these principles, you'll learn these principles. And number 10 is we focus on the whole of life rather than the fragments. Look at the big picture. Stop worrying about the tiny little things, the little things you argue over, which are usually stupid, right? Number 11 is since love is eternal, death need not be viewed as fearful. There is no death. It doesn't really exist. You're an eternal being. And number 12, we can always perceive others as either giving a call for help or extending a call, extending love. So you're either extending love, which you know what that feels like when people are wonderful to you. But if they're being grumpy or critical or abusive. It's just a call for love. So how can you turn your attitude around so that you see it from that perspective and learn how to have a boundary, but at the same time, recognize that they're not really trying to attack you. They're just looking for love.
Wow. I love those. Wow, Ellyn. And have you always been using these each week, like a different one each week for your support groups?
Yes. And I got involved with attitudinal healing by going to some workshops with Jerry Polsky when he was alive. He's passed away, but when he was alive. So back in 1996, I think was the first time I went to a support group with he and his wife, Diane, in Tiburon, California. And then a gentleman started an attitudinal healing center in Sacramento. And so I ended up going there and then started one in my own office in Sacramento back in 1997. And so that's what we've done. We've worked with these principles, and then people share their stories of forgiveness, and they're really positive. So the gentleman that had invited me to the cancer support group in the hospital, when he came to our support group, he said, "Oh my God, the difference is like night and day. When we're sitting around in a circle in the hospital, we're all complaining about our symptoms and what the chemotherapy has done to our hair. But here we come and we listen to these amazing stories of forgiveness and love. And it's just really empowering for people. So they actually leave feeling really upbeat and positive and happy."
Wow. I bet that's so, so powerful, Ellyn.
Yeah. Stories of healing, stories of love. That's what we end up focusing on. So, yeah, and you can imagine how empowering it is for me, to be able to hear these people and how they're transforming and they're stopping blaming. They're stopping feeling sorry for themselves. Cancer patients can feel really sorry for themselves. But then when they hear somebody else's story, they start to see, wow, I can turn this around too. So, hey, you're going to have to get my book, Amanda.
So when did you write the book? How long ago was that?
When I moved to Sedona from Boulder, I went to a Write Your Book in One Weekend. It was a 3-day seminar from a man named Tom Bird. And I came in with a little notepad that I had written out, just handwritten notes on these patients, these 20 people that I'd gone to Mexico with a girlfriend. I said, God, I got a book in me. We got to brainstorm this. And so I had these little notes. It was just a little notepad like this. He taught me how to put all the essence of the stories on Post-it notes and put them up on a wall and start putting them into categories. And it just really inspired me. So I got on my laptop and I started typing them all out. And I had it all finished about 8 years ago. And then I started teaching. I started teaching at a Waldorf school here and kind of put it on my back burner. And then, okay, here's another synchronistic story. So I go to this workshop, choose again. I go to this workshop. This is the one where they do a lot of breath work. They do a lot of sound healings, and they really look at, taking you back to your childhood. They do inner child work. And they had a medium come in at the end. They say, "Hey, does anybody want to stay? We've got this medium coming over. Would you like to join?" So he walks in and he turns right around and he looks at me. I mean, I'm the first person he gazes on, and he says, "Oh my gosh, your parents are standing right behind you. Your mother is right there on your left shoulder and your father's right there on your right shoulder. And they're saying, you've got a book. You've got a book that's been sitting in your computer for 10 years and you got to write it." I came out of there just completely blown away. I went and got my laptop, opened it up, found that book, and I got on Airbnb. And because I knew I couldn't write it, I'm too busy here in Sedona. So I booked out 6 weeks in Costa Rica in a rainforest at a yurt way up in the middle of nowhere. And I took my laptop with me, and there was internet reception. And I ended up finishing the book, finished it, edited it, sent it to friends to edit, worked on the cover, all that. And when I came home, January, it was all ready for formatting, and I sent it off and self-published. It's a self-published book. And it just came out 3 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I have a lot of these things happen to me. When I hear it, I know when it's a divine call. And so it might sound like there's a lot of these really miraculous things that happen, but it's just because I'm tuned in. And you can all be tuned in. That's why I tell my clients at the support group, learn to tune in that client voice.
Now, I'm curious, before you got these messages, like long time ago, maybe even when you were a teenager, did you always think you'd write a book about something?
No. But, the reason I did it is because when I moved from Boulder to Sedona, I had these banker boxes of client files that I was moving. And I must have had 7 or 8 of them. And I thought, what am I going to do with them? I can't fit everything in that U-Haul. I've got to cull this out. And so I started going through them. And there were these amazing stories, these people who've written these little handwritten notes about forgiveness were in their files, or a little crayon drawing from their daughter who said, "Mommy, please heal." These little wonderful little mementos. And I thought, I cannot let these people not have their legacy. They've got this legacy and I've got to tell their stories because some of them had passed. So I kept all the files and whittled it down to like a box and a half. And I just felt really compelled that I had to tell these stories. So 20 of them are in this book.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense about telling their legacy. That makes a lot of sense. I think that's beautiful that you did that, though.
Yeah, they have a message for all of us. Learn to love. Figure out who you are. You're not your Ferrari. You're not your bank account. You're not your body. You're just pure essence of love. And that can change not only you, but it can change multitudes.
Yeah. How did you discover that we're more than the physical body?
When we moved to Sedona, my partner, Denny, and I, my partner was very much into holistic healing too. He was an acupuncturist, chiropractor, astrologer, Vedic astrologer. And he passed away 4.5 years ago. And I felt like he was right there in the room. I couldn't physically see him, but he had a heart attack, so it was very sudden, but he was definitely there. So I really, and this is when I started looking into mediums, to be honest with you. So I called a medium and I said, gosh, I think I had a conversation with him and he wasn't in the body. I was looking in the mirror and I'm having this conversation with him. And she said, yeah, he was there. He was there. And he's doing great. He's okay. Don't worry. And he loves you. And this is all supposed to happen. There's nothing you could do to prevent it. And you have a different chapter in your life. And that's kind of what's happened. I've learned a lot from what we perceive as death, but is really just a new rebirth. That's all it is.
Yeah. No, that's true. It is just a new rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm curious, Ellyn, and I'm sure a lot of these based on your story, but what would you say is the biggest aha moment you've had in your life?
I would say for me, the biggest aha was recognizing through the deaths of, I've been around a lot of deaths, not just my family and my brother and father and my partner, but through the people that I worked with, that there is this divine essence that runs through all of us, that we are all one, we are all teachers to each other, but we're all brothers and sisters to each other. And we are so connected. And that any type of attack I make on my brother or sister, and that could be someone I don't even know, someone maybe it's a news story on TV and I'm getting mad at whoever has perpetrated this terrible thing on the news, recognizing that that's me. So I think it's really been over the course of these years working with people that are transitioning into a new dimension. It hasn't been one big aha. It's just been a series of things that have led me to recognize our true essence.
That makes a lot of sense. I get that about the divineness, and when you look at it as a rebirth, it's a different process, a different feeling.
We have death doulas here in Sedona that do miraculous work with helping people birth into the next plane. And it really is a divine calling. And there's several people that do it. This one friend of mine, she teaches at the school that I teach at. She teaches music. And she sits with people at the end of their life and sings the most beautiful songs to them to help them transition and follow the light across the threshold. It's really amazing. But there's several people that do this. I have another friend that has a property in which they can bring their loved ones once they've passed, and they can find a tree and put their ashes around this tree, this living symbol of who they really are, that they continue to live instead of a big heavy stone. It's this living tree to remind us that this soul lives on.
That's beautiful. Now, Ellyn, I'm curious, and you kind of hinted at it, but how did you come up with the title, It Takes More Than Carrot Juice?
I was kind of mulling over the different things that I wanted to talk about, that there's much more to the therapies that you use. There's much more to healing than doing the chemo. There's much more to healing than doing the diet plan. There's much more to healing than using the acupuncturist. So I went to a workshop with Jack Canfield, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I told him, he read my book and he said, boy, this is great, but I think your title should be It Takes More Than Carrot Juice. I think that'd be a great title. So he actually picked it. I have to give him credit, is that he actually
Oh my God, he picked it.
Yeah.
So that's not what you were leaning towards?
I wasn't sure. There were other things were coming up that I just, I had kind of the idea, but I hadn't birthed the real thing. And then he was the one that came up with the cover, which is the V bag full of carrot juice. And on it says, I don't know if you saw it, but on it says, the missing ingredients, physical, emotional, and spiritual, and they're all checked off. The missing ingredients. Yeah, so he picked that cover too. We had a cover designer give us 3 options. One was of a glass of carrot juice that was tipping over. One was really busy, a lot of people in a hospital and a lot of busyness. And then this one. And Jack said, oh, this is the one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And now you mentioned Post-it notes helped you in the process of writing it.
Yeah, and I've actually recommended to 2 friends who are writing their book too to do this process. And what Tom Bird does is he has you take all of these stories, like I took all the stories out of my little notebook here, and he has you pull out what are the kind of page-turning parts of the story. So he's looking for, when you get to the end of a chapter, what's going to make someone want to continue to read. So we just wrote all of those things on these Post-it notes. And then you stick them all up on a board and you start to rearrange where the stories go. Like, oh, these are forgiveness stories. We should put this all in one chapter. Ooh, these are stories about mindset. We should change this whole chapter on mindset. And we should put that over in this chapter. Oh, this is one about identifying too much with your cancer. We should put these stories there. So he helps you categorize things and then rearrange them and put them in kind of a template. And that's when you start writing. Then you sit down and you start typing it all into a framework. And I would compare it to a scaffold that you put it in by the end of the weekend. You haven't really written the whole book, but you've put it all into a scaffold and you now know what the outline looks like. And you've got the essence of your stories. And then you flush it out and you add more descriptiveness. That's how you write it. That's how you use the Post-it notes.
I like that suggestion. I've never heard that in terms of writing a book or the process of.
It's his thing. You can find him online, Tom Bird, but he still teaches people to as he used to say, pull the book out of them.
Have it look out of them. I'm always asking the authors I speak to for their tips and tricks on that. I haven't written a book yet myself, but it's on the list of things I'm going to do.
Well, and I will highly recommend going away and doing it without distraction. because that really helped me focus. You are completely captured, a captured author. And if you have a thought about something you want to put in your chapter, you can run over there and do it because you're just by yourself in the rainforest, the toucans and the monkeys, the howler monkeys.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Even if it's not like an international trip, but like,
oh, it doesn't even have to be
getting away.
Find a cabin up in the hills somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You're in Massachusetts. There's lots of places that you could go.
No, that's true. A little more seclusion so you're not out there doing all the other things.
Yeah, but give it some time because really creative things come from when you've been isolated for a couple of weeks. And my book completely changed by being there for an extended period of time. And I think it's because then you hear the divine presence around you. You kind of hear the angels calling you and you feel like, oh, wow, yeah, I gotta put it that way. So yeah, give yourself time with the angels.
I agree with that. I spent over a month in Bali and towards the end of it, I was definitely creative juices were different, because like I was going to yoga classes and I was going to Tantra, but like I didn't have much of a schedule, quote unquote, So
yeah,
my mind was thinking differently.
So you've been there before. Just repeat the experience.
Yeah.
You could do it anywhere.
But
it's harder to do at home when your friends know where you are and you've got a schedule and you think you have to go to the grocery store and buy something. I didn't have a grocery store where I was. There was a little lady across the street from my little path that had a fruit stand. So she had everything to make salsa. She had tomatoes and she had cilantro and jalapenos. And she had all this fruit, bananas, papayas, pineapple, all kinds of things like that. And so that's what I ate, which probably helped with the process too, because I was definitely very cleansed nutritionally.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much, Ellyn. I really enjoyed this.
Well, thanks, Amanda. I think you're destined to be one. So I can't wait to read your book. Think about all the podcasts you've done and all the people that you've interviewed. Right there's a book.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. So, but it's been very enjoyable. I've really gotten a lot out of this conversation.
Me as well, Ellyn.
No, Jay Shetty, what's his background?
So I'm a big fan, but he's a former monk. He's got a podcast. He's an author, and he ends his podcast on purpose with 2 different segments. And I've borrowed those segments and I end Mander's Mindset with them.
Oh, okay, great.
But they're not my questions, so I give some credit.
Okay.
First segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered in 1 word each.
Okay.
What is 1 word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Energetic.
What is 1 word someone who knows you well would use to describe you as?
Loving.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Transformational.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Intense.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Peace.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
That I have blocks to my own presence of love was probably the best advice because then I wanted to remove them.
What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
Probably stock market investment advice.
Or what is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
material things in general. I would say I no longer value the pretty clothes, the facials, the high-heeled shoes.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be, as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
I would want it to say that Ellyn Hilliard McLeod helped people learn how to heal through love.
That's beautiful. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
Boy, if I could create a law, learn to love yourself, because you cannot love others unless you know how to love yourself. Love is already present. And so you need to recognize and wake up that you are it. So I would say if you could somehow pass a law that helps people love themselves, the world would be healed.
I agree. The world would be. Well, thank you so much, Ellyn. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, if people are interested in my support group, I do bring my laptop with me and they can follow it on Zoom. It's an actual in-person group. We hold it at the United Methodist Church in Sedona on Sundays. It's at 5 p.m. on Sundays, and they can send a message to my website. There's a place where you can fill in your email address and I can get you on the Zoom link. SedonaSolution.com. It's singular, SedonaSolution.com. And they can find everything on my site. We'll get you on there.
And I will link that in the show notes for you guys to click it directly. Ellyn, are you active on social media if anybody wants to connect?
I have a Facebook page. I have a Sedona Solution page. I also have a YouTube channel and I have an Instagram.
Okay, awesome. I will link those as well. Thank you so much, Ellyn. And,
all right. I'm done.
And no pressure, but I'd just like to give it back to the guests. Anything else you want to share with the listeners before we close out?
If this has some sort of impact with you and you know someone who is struggling with cancer or any life-threatening illness, I would really encourage you to let them know that there is hope. There is hope. There's many of us around that are working with people to help them see the love that they are. And that really is the ultimate healing. So I would say, please send them my way. There's lots of people here in Sedona that I connect with. There's some healers here that are really quite transformational. So you've got to come visit, Amanda. You've got to come visit us.
Well, thank you so much again, Ellyn. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our time.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Mando's Mindset. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.